She wasn't just tired. She was drained from working day and night, caring for children that weren't even her own. The soft carpet of the mansion was only a few steps away, yet she lay on the cold hardwood floor beside the twins, her thin sweater doing little to fight the chill. She hoped to keep them warm, safe, and asleep through the night. But when the millionaire walked in, his eyes didn't soften. They hardened, cold, sharp, and full of something far darker than disapproval. What he did next would expose a truth far bigger than one night. A truth about race, privilege, and silence. Her name was Marianne, a quiet, soft-spoken woman from a small rural town where opportunity was scarce and work was often seasonal. Years ago, she left that life behind, carrying little more than hope in her heart and a bag of clothes in her hand. The city had promised better. Steady work, decent pay, maybe even dignity. She found employment at the sprawling home of a wealthy family. The mansion, with its marble floors and chandeliers, was a world away from the small wooden house she'd grown up in. Her duties were endless. Cleaning rooms, cooking meals, tending to laundry that seemed to multiply by the hour. But her favorite part of the job was the twins. Barely 5 years old, they were bundles of energy, laughter, and mischief. To them, Marianne wasn't the help. She was their comfort when nightmares came, the one who listened to their little stories, the one who noticed when their shoes didn't fit anymore. Still, to their father, the millionaire who owned the house, she was an employee, replaceable, invisible except when something wasn't done to perfection. Marianne worked without complaint, even when her back ached from bending over laundry for hours, or when she skipped her lunch to prepare elaborate meals for the family. She believed kindness would eventually earn respect. But one chilly night, as the twins slept and the temperature in their room dropped, Marianne lay down beside them on the floor to keep them warm. She didn't know it then, but this simple act of care would ignite something far more dangerous than she could have imagined. And the man who would decide her fate was already walking toward the door. The door creaked open, breaking the stillness. Warm light from the hallway cut across the floor, spilling toward her. Marianne turned her head slightly, expecting to see the children's mother. Instead, it was him, the millionaire. His posture was stiff, his shadow long against the wall. His eyes swept the room, pausing on the scattered toys, the sleeping children, and finally, her. The pause was heavy, too heavy. His gaze didn't carry curiosity or confusion. It carried judgment. After a few seconds, he stepped forward, the click of his polished shoes echoing louder with each step. "You couldn't find a chair? Or the couch?" His voice was flat but sharp enough to cut through the quiet. Marianne parted her lips, ready to explain. The room had been cold, the children restless, and she hadn't wanted to leave them alone. But before she could say a word, he lifted his hand and waved it dismissively. "We'll discuss this in the morning." The next day, the air in the mansion was different, colder. The staff who once exchanged small smiles avoided her gaze. Even the twins, usually eager for hugs, seemed hesitant, as if they had overheard something they didn't fully understand. By noon, she was summoned to the study. The millionaire sat behind an enormous desk, papers neatly stacked in front of him. He didn't offer her a seat. His voice was clipped, deliberate. "There have been concerns about your work lately." He listed them one by one: misplaced silverware, dust in the library, lateness that had never happened. The accusations were petty, but they were enough to build a case. Marianne realized this wasn't about her performance. This was about the image in his mind, a black maid lying on the floor of his perfect home. He leaned forward, his voice low. "I have a reputation to maintain. I can't have situations that look inappropriate. Situations." The word hit her like a slap. Caring for 2 shivering children was now a situation. In his eyes, it was a threat. Not to safety, but to his status. She left the room with her job technically intact, but her dignity in pieces. And deep down, she knew it wasn't over. The next step wouldn't just end her employment, it would try to erase her completely. It came 3 days later. She was called into the main hall. Waiting for her were the millionaire, his wife, and 2 members of his prestigious charity foundation. On the table lay a photograph, grainy, dimly lit, but unmistakable. It showed Marianne lying on the floor beside the twins. "This," the millionaire said, sliding the photo toward her, "is unacceptable. It raises questions about boundaries, professionalism." Marianne's breath caught. The photo was taken without her knowledge, twisted into something it wasn't. In their eyes, it wasn't care, it was suspicion. And the unspoken truth was suffocating. If she had been anyone else, anyone but a black maid, the story they told themselves would have been different. She tried to explain, but his wife interrupted. "We can't have implications. You understand, I'm sure." Her hands trembled, not from guilt, but from the weight of knowing they had already decided. She looked toward the doorway where the twins stood silently, eyes wide, not understanding why their friend looked so small in the face of so many adults. The millionaire turned away, his voice final. "You'll leave by the end of the day." The sound of the door closing behind him was louder than any word he had spoken. By sunset, Marianne's life was packed into a single suitcase. The twins clung to her legs, their small arms wrapped tightly around her. But she could only give them a gentle smile and a whispered promise. The millionaire stood at a distance, arms folded, his silence heavy and deliberate. She walked away from the mansion quietly, just as she had arrived years ago. But something inside her was different now. They had tried to place shame on her, but she refused to carry it. She knew the truth. Her only mistake was showing compassion in a world that judged her skin before her intentions. In the days that followed, she replayed the moment in her mind, not because of the cold floor or the unfair accusations, but because of what it revealed. How easily a story could be twisted. How quickly people could decide who you were based on one image, one moment, one prejudice. She found work again, in a smaller home with people who valued her for more than the job she did. But the wound from that night stayed with her. It was a reminder that racism doesn't always shout. It whispers. It hides behind words like reputation and professionalism.